Let ZeroRes help you refresh your home with clean carpets, fresh floors, and improved air quality. Right now, get one room Zero-Resified for only $45 per room and take $75 off your air duct cleaning when you mention our 870 AM The Answer special. Call 949-503-9569 or go online at ZeroResSoCal.com.
We don't make the news that happens. We just bring it to you first with the facts, then the opinions. AM 870, The Answer. AM 870, The Answer.
This program is sponsored by Freedom Bound International.
In the hands of honest, patriotic people.
In support of the universal principles of truth, justice, and the eternal struggle for freedom for all people, this is the Global Freedom Report. You can be a part of the show by calling 866-870-5752. That's 866-870-KRLA. And now, the host of the Global Freedom Report, Brent Johnson.
They may take our lives, throw us in jail, steal our property, defame our character, but they cannot kill the truth. And for the next 2 hours, the truth is back in business. Freedom means never having to ask those people whom you have allowed to run your government for you for permission to do anything. That is the birthright of all Americans and all free people everywhere. Are you a human being with unalienable rights, or are you a piece of government property who has to say how high every time some bureaucrat tells you to jump? Are you the ruler of your life, or are you subject to someone else's rules and regulations? Are you going to live free or as a slave? This show is about truth, justice, and liberty. We'll also show you practical ways to live free in today's surveillance society and give you a good picture of how the globalist cancer is infecting the world and what you can do to stop it. Coming up on today's show, the vast majority of members of Congress have no oaths of office. Loy Brunson will join us to discuss his case at the Supreme Court to remove all congressmen without oaths. Also, we will bring you another lesson in liberty where you learn really useful things they never taught you in public school. And we will take you on another trip into the dirty world of mind control and behavioral manipulation on Propaganda 101. That's all coming up on today's edition of the Global Freedom Report. You can join us right now in our live chat room at www.globalfreedomreport.us or call us toll free from anywhere in the United States and Canada at 866-870-KRLA. That number again, 866-870-5752 to go on the air. Our question for this week, what do you believe is more important, preserving freedom or combating terrorism? You think about it before you answer. What do you believe is more important, preserving freedom or combating terrorism? We're going to take our first break. When we come back, tonight's edition or today's edition of the Global Freedom Report. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Fighting for your freedom. This is the Global Freedom Report. We'll be right back.
What if you could live free from government regulation? What if you could learn how to lawfully opt out of taxes, eliminate personal liability, and travel in your vehicle without Big Brother watching over you? The American Sovereign, How to Live Free from Government Regulation, reveals the truth about the American legal system, the U.S. Constitution, and shows how to protect your God-given rights. The American Sovereign provides information critical to all people who value liberty. This 250-page full-size paperback will change the way you live and teach you how to reclaim control over your life. The American Sovereign, How to Live Free from Government Regulation, is available through Freedom Bound International. Call them toll-free at 888-385-3733. That's 888-385-FREE. Or visit their website at freedomradio.us. The American Sovereign, How to Live Free from Government Regulation is the #1 book on sovereignty in the world. Get your copy today.
And welcome back to the Global Freedom Report. I'm your host, Brent Johnson. If you'd like to be part of the show, the toll-free number is 866-870-KRLA, 866-870-5752. Listen, if you have some issue you feel real strongly about, positive or negative, something that you would like to rant or rave about, this is your opportunity to actually be heard. You can take the microphone, go on the air on the Global Freedom Report, and give us your rant and or your rave, whatever may be in your mind. Listeners will be given the chance to call into the show and share their anger, their outrage, their frustration, or their pleasure about whatever the issue is that concerns them. All you have to do, if you want to do rant and rave, you're going to get 5 minutes of airtime, and you're going to have easily 500,000 to 1 million people hearing what you have to say. And all you have to do is give us a call off the air at 888-385-3733. That number again, 888-385-FREE. And say, I got something, I want to do a rant and rave, and we'll get you set up on a future show soon to talk about your issue. This is one of the ways that we get you to take the microphone and be a part of the Global Freedom Report. So join us if you have a rant or a rave that you would like to express. The Hollywood dream appears to have turned into a nightmare, with thousands of Angelenos fleeing the city. A total of 53,934 people left Los Angeles County between July 2024 and July 2025. This, according to the latest population data from the United States Census. Former residents blamed high rents and crime-ridden streets for their decision to abandon the city, which is also in the grip of a joblessness crunch. Sidewalks in the city's famous Venice Beach neighborhood covered with makeshift homeless encampments. Residents say used needles and garbage strewn across the street is a daily occurrence. In the dark hours, prostitutes linger on the corners hoping for business while police look the other way. In December, Shirley Rivera Faher, 30, moved from Koreatown in LA to Overland Park, Kansas. The native Angeleno had finally had enough. Faher and her husband were begrudgingly paying $3,800 a month for their 2-bedroom apartment near Glendale that was steps away from a number of homeless people and prostitutes. It started to get really pricey, and we also just didn't feel safe at all, said Faher. The homelessness and drug crisis was cited by some of the more than 53,000 people who left LA County between July 2024 and 2025. Paying that much, we were hoping to at least get some safety as well. There are needles on the floor and everything in Koreatown, and just a lot of the mental illness and drug addiction out there. We had enough. After visiting her sister in Kansas, the couple, who hoped to one day have children, decided they liked the slower pace of life in the Midwest and found the area to be more suitable for raising a family. Her brother still lives in Koreatown and raises a son there. It hurts her to see her nephew living in a neighborhood surrounded by drug addiction and mental illness. Fayer saw a huge change in Los Angeles after the non-existent so-called pandemic, when the homeless population increased, rising to more than 72,000 people in 2025. Given the explosion of problems, Fayer said LA's exodus does not surprise her. I just think it's gotten way too out of control, but I do hope that someday they're able to fix this, give more resources to homeless people, help them with drug addiction, mental illness, whatever it may be. In a statement to the Daily Mail, Colby Lee, spokesman for Marxist Democrat Mayor Karen Bass, hit back. Colby said, "Facts matter. LA is safer than it's been in decades, including declines in violent crime for the last 2 years and homicides at a 60-year low. While homelessness is rising across the country, Mayor Bass has reduced street homelessness here by nearly 18%. Of course, the cost of living is too darn high." What the spokesman for Mayor Bass does not say is that the reason that data shows that crime is down is because the government has stopped prosecuting criminals. They just let them out. So there are no criminals. The statistics show less criminals because they are not prosecuting criminals, not because there are no crimes. Although it is unclear where Angelenos are fleeing to, many counties in Texas gained tens of thousands of new residents. Harris County, which includes Houston, gained 48,695 new residents. Cullen County, which contains parts of Plano, gained 42,966 residents. This according to the census. Meanwhile, 4 California counties, Los Angeles, Orange, San Diego, and Ventura, saw losses, with LA suffering the worst. The other 3 counties saw fewer than 10,000 people leave. The Golden State had 4 counties in the top 10 with declining populations, with a total of 70,328 people leaving LA, San Diego, Orange, and Ventura counties. LA's Marxist Mayor Karen Bass, who is actually running for re-election, has been criticized for the state of the city of Angels and its high crime rates and growing homeless population. Last month, the mayor was embarrassed again after a man was discovered living in a manhole for a year. He was discovered by city workers who were planning on sealing a storm drain. You folks are in this region. What do you think about LA having people leave and about the situation? What do you think about crime in the LA region? What do you think about what Marxist Mayor Bass said? What are your comments? We'd love to hear from you. 866-870-KRLA. We'll be right back with more of the Global Freedom Report.
You're listening to the Global Freedom Report. We'll be right back.
DOJA, the Department of Government Accountability. This is our citizen-led watchdog task force under American-Made Action. We're exposing corruption in child welfare, family courts, and unconstitutional federal programs like Title IV-E, the funding that is sifted straight down through the Health and Human Services Agency into the Social Security Administration and directly out to the agencies across 50 states that are responsible for the separation of children and families. And through lawful notices, federal lawsuits, and investigative media, DOJA is holding those rogue officials accountable, demanding transparency and restoring parental rights. We're not waiting for Congress. We're the people taking lawful action now. Visit AmericanMadeAction.org. Hit the Take Action button and join the reckoning.
They need only to give up the idea of forcing us to acquiesce to their groups and theories, their socialized projects, their free credit banks, their Greco-Roman concept of morality, and their commercial regulations. I ask only that we be permitted to decide upon these plans for ourselves, that we not be forced to accept them, directly or indirectly, if we find them to be contrary to our best interests or repugnant to our consciences.
I'd rather die than be your slave. The great work of Poker Face. Welcome back to the Global Freedom Report. I'm your host, Brent Johnson, and it's a pleasure to have you with me. This is a great show on which we are about to embark. Without a doubt, Loy Brunson is a patriot of the highest degree. Growing up in a conservative family with a father who taught his 4 sons the importance of the Constitution and service to God, Loy learned what he teaches today, that words without action are meaningless. His was always a tight-knit family and continues to be so today. In his youth, he and his 3 brothers had a musical band, the Brunson Brothers. They appeared multiple times on a popular show of its time, the Liberace Show, where they all played trumpets in upbeat and engaging comedy, songs, and tons of fun. As each moved into his own profession, their commitment to faith, family, and truth continued. However, music has always been a place where they come together and let off a little steam. His brother's 6,000 square foot studio is their stomping grounds. In 2020, Loy and his other brothers realized the enormity of the presidential election travesty. One brother is well learned in constitutional law. Another has a printing firm. Using their skills and passions, they came together to attack the beast that stole the 2020 election. Ultimately, all 3 entered individual cases with a direction to the Supreme Court of the United States of America. 1 case was dismissed and 2 moved forward. Loy's case remains active. Now that Loy is officially retired, he continues to educate, entertain, and address constitutional challenges before the American people. Although Loy has never married, he and his brothers remain in close proximity to each other. Loy Brunson, it is my privilege and my genuine honor to welcome you to the Global Freedom Report. How are you, Loy?
Well, I'm doing great, thanks. Thanks for having me on the show. And there are a few things you said that I could elaborate a little more on some of the things you said too. So,
absolutely.
Anyway,
well, here, go ahead. Go ahead. You start off. Tell me a little bit more about Loy Brunson and his family. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, we did a Liberace tour. It's just one tour, but it was 150 shows. That was in 1984. And that was a big anniversary tour. That was, at the time, that was the largest money grossing act in the world, according to Billboard magazine. So, but in addition to that, I like to brag about how Johnny Carson discovered us. Some of you out there might remember him. And
Oh
so
yeah.
we've been we got on the Tonight Show, and we got on a show called the NBC's Christmas Special, and we were introduced to President Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan. We had pictures of that and received a nice letter from him. So that was a lot of fun. That was a good experience. And then really the person that inspired me to get into the Constitution about 2010 was Barack Obama, when he
Oh
told the world,
really?
yeah, when he
Oh
told the
my.
world that the foundation of the Constitution was fundamentally flawed. And so that inspired me to start studying the document. And because I had some knowledge of the Federal Reserve System and money, I'd watched Bill Still's 3-hour, 2.5-hour documentary called The Money Masters.
Hmm.
And so I was able to connect some dots in the Constitution. And I thought when I felt guilty and started studying the Constitution from Barack Obama's making me feel guilty for not being up on it when he slandered it, I discovered things that I thought every constitutional scholar knew. And I discovered that these are some concepts that have literally never been publicized before, some of the concepts I found. So I took these concepts to the director of the National Center for Constitutional Studies, and I shared them with him, explaining my kind of dismay that I couldn't find anyone that had taught these concepts before and had emphasized some of these power clauses in the Constitution. And he told me that he had never heard them before either, and asked me if he could publish them. And I thought, that's a great idea. But later I thought about that. Why don't I just publish them myself and put a Constitution book together? And so since that time, I've printed over 100,000 Constitution books. And my latest, most exciting version of the book is what I have here. It's a coffee table size book, and it's hardbound, and it's the President Trump commemorative edition. And our commander in chief, his job description is the oath of office. So I have his picture on the back, and he likes gold. So I thought I would put some gold on there, gold foil. And with his commitment to the Constitution, as president, my highest duty is to protect the American people and the Constitution of the United States of America. President Donald J. Trump. So it's about awareness, raising awareness. And one of the important highlights of this book is the fact that this proves very clearly that the Constitution not only does not support socialism, but it actually clearly prohibits socialism. The enumerated powers in the Constitution, well, in other words, to keep it simple, the Constitution in many ways doesn't prohibit things that should be prohibited, but it really is only to protect us from our government and from others from overstepping the bounds that are set up and violating our rights. So I like to talk about how it clearly prohibits socialism. And I'm thinking, Bernie Sanders, this is a special message for you, Bernie, and Mayor Mamdani, this is a special message for you. You've both taken an oath to literally to defend the city of New York with the mayor, and the United States with Senator Bernie Sanders. They've both taken an oath to protect us from socialism. And that's what the document clearly proves. But because of our ignorance, we don't hold their feet to the fire. So I own the trademark Every Home in America. And so the goal is to get it out there to every home in America. And I'm on track. I have some pretty exciting things in the mail that could really get this going. So,
and excellent. And thank you for that introduction to Loy Brunson. And by the way, thank you for the book. You sent me a copy of it, and it looks terrific. It really does look great. Well,
thank you.
So one of the really important things I want to address with you tonight, and we've got enough time that we'll be able to pick up on some of the other things that you mentioned. But one of the really important things I want to address is the issue of the oaths of office. Now, we got to take a break in a short while. When we come back, okay, my guest is Loy Brunson. The topic, oaths of office, and the significance of them and what it means if your government officials, your elected officials, don't have a proper oath of office. We're going to tackle all of that. If you'd like to join in, 866-870-KRLA, 866-870-5752. Loy, stand by. We'll be right back with more of the Global Freedom Report.
This is where the truth matters. The Global Freedom Report. Don't go away. Brent will return in a moment.
A common law pure trust organization is the most powerful asset protection device available. Pure trusts have been around in the USA since 1790, when patriot Patrick Henry created the first one. Pure trusts establish ironclad protection for real property, vehicles, businesses, and just about anything else. A pure trust creates a wall of privacy over its assets, reduces personal liability, and protects property from attachment. Freedom Bound International has been creating pure trusts for over 35 years, and none of their trusts have ever been successfully attacked. Call today at 888-385-FREE. That number again is 888-385-3733. Or visit their website at freedomradio.us for information and applications for their pure trusts. Freedom Bound International, dedicated to the preservation of personal freedom, privacy rights, and the principles enshrined in the Declaration of Independence.
The Answer. Breaking
President Trump says it's always shocking when there's an attempt on his life, like what happened Saturday night at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Speaking from the White House, the president said the dinner will be rescheduled.
We'll do it again within the next 30 days. It will make it bigger and better and even nicer.
Trump was joined by FBI Director Kash Patel and Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, who promised swift justice. Larry Marino on The Answer with breaking news and talk you can trust.
Whether you're climbing the corporate ladder, launching a new project, or just looking for that extra edge, your brain is your most valuable asset. Now there's a way to support it every single day. Think Factor. From the makers of Relief Factor, Think Factor is built to help you stay sharp, nurture your memory, boost your attention. It unlocks the mental clarity and precision you need to stay ahead of the game, no matter the challenge. After a couple of weeks of taking Think Factor, I noticed a dramatic difference in my clarity, my focus, even my memory. And look, the longer you take Think Factor, the better it works. This is not a one-off. You want to take Think Factor regularly. If you're a go-getter who refuses to settle, Think Factor can help you perform at your best and keep your edge. Call 800-4RELIEF. That's 800-4RELIEF, or just visit relieffactor.com to order Think Factor. Go to relieffactor.com or call 800-4RELIEF. Your first bottle is just $19.95. Think Factor. Think clearer, perform better daily with Think Factor.
You work hard your whole life. You scrimp and save, and then you put your money in the hands of a financial wealth advisor hoping for a good return. But the advisor wasn't looking out for you. Sound familiar? Hi, I'm Elliot Rosenberger, an attorney with Stop Your Steal. Anne is a client of ours. Her retirement portfolio was shredded by a wealth advisor.
After I realized my money was gone, I was traumatized. I couldn't believe I was a victim. I heard an ad for Stop Your Steal, and I gave them a call. They got right on it and fought for me.
We went after the advisor, held his feet to the fire, and maximized Anne's recovery. Are you losing money and don't know why? Could it be that your broker sold you unsuitable investments or put their own commission interests ahead of yours? Go to stopyoursteal.com or call 888-358-4547. Investment fraud attorneys Rosenberger, Kawabata, Satnick, and Lau. We hold bad brokers accountable. StopYourSteal.com. StopYourSteal.com.
Rosenberger and Kawabata, 475 Washington Boulevard, Marina Del Rey, California, 90292.
The Morning Answer with Jennifer Horn.
Now they want a savings tax. If somehow you scrimp and save and put a little money away, now these damn money-grabbing politicians are trying to say, let's get that too. No, taxes are too high. We actually should cut taxes. And the way to do this, go after the waste, fraud, and abuse.
Yes. But guess what? Democrats don't want you to do that either because they're making money from the fraud.
The Morning Answer with Jennifer Horn. Weekdays starting at 6 a.m. on AM 870 The Answer. AM 870 The Answer is everywhere on the air in SoCal at AM 870 on your AM 870 smartphone.
And the advantage of modern technology.
And now on Amazon and Google Home speakers. Just ask for AM 870 The Answer.
Are you listening?
Read the latest headlines on our website, AM870theanswer.com.
This is Bob Chapman, publisher of the International Forecaster, reporting the truth about political and economic events and the globalist agenda. And you're listening to the Global Freedom Report.
See, nanocells are real small, 1,000 times smaller than these dust particulates. You inhale it, they go to work, replicating, spreading like a virus, multiplying in exponentials. 6 months' time, I could have 100 million people converted, ditch diggers, porn stars, and presidents. Not one would be the wiser. 100 million people who buy what I want them to buy and vote how I want them to vote. Do pretty much damn well anything I figure they ought to do.
Freedom Fever.
Remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason, and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot.
Freedom Fever. Catch it today.
And welcome back to the Global Freedom Report. I'm your host, Brent Johnson. My guest is Loy Brunson. Loy, welcome back to the show. Question: you have spent years working on a case regarding the lack of oaths of office for members of Congress. How did you become involved in pursuing this question? What got you started on this quest for the truth?
Well, it actually is not about. It's not about them lacking an oath of office. It's about them violating the oath of office. And when an official fails to take an oath, a legal, lawful oath, he's even more accountable. So, but the purpose for this lawsuit was the 2020 election. There was a huge security breach proved clearly by Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and 140 other members of Congress. And also with a mountain of evidence, they tried to get the other members of the House and Senate to support a simple 10-day pause for a simple 10-day investigation into the mountain of evidence proving that we had been attacked through our electoral system, either by foreign or domestic enemies. And so the fact that they didn't get more support than about 145 members of Congress, we decided, my brothers and I decided to bring a lawsuit against all of those who failed to support the 10-day investigation. So that's what it's about.
Okay, fair enough. Now, okay, to take that into account, okay, since you're saying it's not about the oaths of office, it's about whether or not they have kept to their oaths of office. Well, what is the significance of congressmen not honoring their oaths of office? I mean, you know, what to the rest of us, to the ordinary commoners, what is the significance
That's a good question.
of that?
So let's go to one of my Constitution books, and let's go to Article 6, and let's read one of the clauses here. Let's see here. It says that the senators, this is Article 6, third clause, the senators and representatives before mentioned, which is all the senators, all the members of the U.S. House, local and federal, and the members of the several states legislators, and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. So they all swore to uphold the Constitution, but what has happened is we discovered that the Congress has given themselves absolute immunity, which relieves them of penalties for violating their oath, which makes the oath a non-binding oath. So the Constitution is very clear with the words, they shall be bound by oath. But if you have absolute immunity, where's the binding, right? And so this lawsuit, one of the defenses that the U.S. attorneys presented in the lawsuit was that they have absolute immunity, amongst other things. And it's like, well, there you go. There's proof that they have compromised, that they have violated the Constitution. And in a way, they've all taken a false oath because there's no penalty attached. So it's really about education. Thomas Jefferson, President John F. Kennedy spoke to all the Nobel laureates of the Western Hemisphere at a special dinner at the White House. And he said to them, this is a true story. He said to them This is the greatest collection of knowledge and talent ever assembled at the White House, with the possible exception of when Thomas Jefferson dined here alone. And they all laughed. They thought that was funny. But the point is, Thomas Jefferson was brilliant, and he gave us the answer for constitutional abuse. He said the only true corrective for constitutional abuse is education. So as people get this book and see these hidden clauses, and they've been hidden, I think, intentionally for over 200 years, as people start seeing these clauses and realizing that we can hold them up and hold our representatives accountable with the Constitution, it's a huge game changer, and it follows the line of thinking, the thought that Thomas Jefferson talked about, and that is education is the solution.
Well, you bring up a brilliant point there. The issue of immunity, is that an issue that was voted on in the various houses, or was that an issue that is prescribed in the Constitution? What makes them immune?
The only immunity that's granted in the Constitution is, speech on the floor, but also a misdemeanor. Like if you're on your way to a congressional hearing and you get pulled over for a speeding ticket, a misdemeanor, you're protected that way. But there's nothing in the Constitution that would allow them to give themselves absolute immunity. And so for them to take action or not action when our country is being attacked through its electoral process, for them to not take any action at all and to not to take action was a huge security breach and a huge violation. Now, there's a legal term out there. It's fraud vitiates everything. Sort of meaning that when there's fraud involved, the rules change. Now, when there's treason involved and we're being attacked by the enemy, no member of Congress should say, hey, the Constitution protects my inactivity and protects my, with my silence, and my inactivity supports enemies threatening our sovereignty. So it's been an interesting journey. The federal court actually unfiled my case twice. When you file a lawsuit like mine against members of Congress, you're not allowed to go into federal or state court. You have to get permission from the government to sue the government officials. And once you receive permission, then you have to go to a special claims court only with permission. So because I represented myself, my brothers and I thought we're going to ignore that, and we're just going to go see if they'll let us file it. And they did. The court clerk did, but they unfiled it a couple of times. We actually brought action against the federal court, and also the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. We brought action against them for unfiling my case. And finally, they did what we were suing them to do, and they reversed their decision and allowed the lawsuit to move forward, and it ended up in the Supreme Court. Now, as far as it being active right now, I can explain that.
Wait, no, I want you to hold on, because you're going too fast, and I want you to give me a chance to lay the foundation so everybody who's listening and watching can get it clearly. So, okay, when and how are oaths taken? Are they written and signed by the individual taking the oath? Okay, where are the oaths of office stored? Can anyone find out if a specific congressman has a proper oath of office? What's the situation with those?
Oh, sure. Well, I'm sure they've all taken the oath, and the oath is proper, but they've given themselves absolute immunity. And as far as signing their oath, that's a requirement too. As a matter of fact, state constitutions, I know Utah state constitution requires them that they subscribe their oath. And until they've subscribed their oath, they're not acting with authority in their office. They're not officially acting in their office. And my father told me about this some years ago. I lived in Provo, Utah, and he discovered that none of the city council had subscribed their oath, and it had been months since they had taken office. So they were really acting unofficially in their office. So he notified them, and within a couple of days, he got a letter back with a photograph showing all of them subscribing their oath. So just a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of reminder that's proof that you can bring your representatives closer to accountability, which he did with that little action. So I suggest to people, I say, the next time you talk to someone running for office or a town hall meeting, say, read them what I just read, Article 6, and then ask them how it's binding. Ask them what the penalty is for violating their oath. I've done this with a couple of members of Congress, and it's interesting. It's like it's magical what happens. They start thinking for the first time about that subject. You could tell they've never thought about it before. I remember two senators both gave the same answer. I says, what is the penalty for violating the binding oath required in Article 6? And I just zipped it and listened. And they both gave me similar answers. They says, well, you lose the election. And then the first one says, well, wait, that can't be it. There's got to be more to it than that. And so he finally concluded that he's taken, and that all members of Congress have taken, a non-binding oath because of their absolute immunity claims. So this is about holding our representatives' feet to the fire. And there's some other discoveries that I'd like to talk about in the book that are in no other publication too.
And we will definitely get to that. If I find out that a congressman, or maybe a governor or somebody in the state, if I find out somebody does not have a proper oath of office filed, what's my remedy? How do I address it?
Well, you could, I guess you could go to the Attorney General and say, hey, here's the Constitution that you've sworn to uphold, and here's a politician, or here's a mayor, or here's a governor that hasn't subscribed his oath in writing with a signature. I'd like you to investigate, and I'd like to file a complaint. That would be one way to go, or even a county, even a sheriff's office, or a county district attorney's office. You could do that, or you could be kind and remind them that they hadn't done that and ask them to prove it and do it. So it's about awareness, and it's about taking action that can be exhilarating, and you feel some power with the Constitution. And in a way, we've been hypnotized into believing that the Constitution is just a document that we can't use. And I know when you go into a court, most judges, as soon as you say Constitution, they label you as an extremist, and they're just going to prejudice the case or try to get rid of you by agreeing with you so you're not bothering them. But it's really about education. And there's another clause in here I talk about that clearly proves that socialism is unconstitutional. And there's also a governing clause. All right, go ahead.
We're definitely going to get to that. I got a break coming up. And also we're going to talk about judges, because judges have to have those oaths off. Also, those same judges that are sitting here and saying, "Oh, you're an extremist because you cite the Constitution." Well, they have to have oaths of office. So we're going to tackle that as well.
Sure.
But first, we got to pay some bills. We'll be back with Loy Brunson in just a couple of minutes. This is the Global Freedom Report. Stay tuned.
More about freedom and your phone calls right after this.
Freedom Bound International is a common law service center specializing in asset protection. For more than 35 years, they've helped people free themselves from government control. Their common law pure trust organization successfully protects property from confiscation, claims, liens, and judgments. None of their trusts have ever been successfully attacked. The Private Interest Foundation holds assets internationally, distributes funds privately, and does so anonymously. Their stealth LLCs let you set up banking as privately as possible. They offer books, CDs, DVDs, and a variety of products and services designed to teach you how to live free from Big Brother. Call them today at 888-385-FREE. That number again is 888-385-3733. Or visit their website at freedomradio.us. Freedom Bound International, dedicated to the preservation of personal freedom, privacy rights, and the principles enshrined in the Declaration of Independence.
It's just very simple. Sooner or later, everybody's going to have to stand up and protect their own. People are going to have to learn. They're going to say, no, you can't take this from me, or no, you may not do that to me. And when people find out it's up to them to say no, then they have to make a choice. I chose to say no. There's no big deal here. There's no courage. It's just that somebody hurt my kid, my family. And you can't let people go around hurting you or your family.
You can't hide your prying eyes, 'cause we know all about your spies. We've had enough of your endless lies. There ain't no way to hide your prying eyes.
tell you, if you got people like Loy Brunson keeping their eyes and ears open on your behalf, there ain't no way to hide your prying eyes. Welcome back to the Global Freedom Report. I'm your host, Brent Johnson. My guest is Loy Brunson. We're talking about the oaths of office that all government officials, federal or state, must take. And if you'd like to join in at some point, we will open up the phone line shortly, 866-870-KRLA. Loy, now you have worked very hard to get this case to the Supreme Court. I know you have jumped through numerous hoops. Okay, you've had it scheduled, docketed, undocketed, back and forth, but somehow you actually managed to get it done where so many before you have failed. How did you navigate the extensive bureaucratic hurdles and reach a point where the court would actually hear your arguments?
Well, first of all, it's a unique case. I don't think there's ever been a personal damage claim filed against members of Congress before. And so we went into federal court and it was unfiled, and and we brought lawsuits against the federal court for unfiling it. We felt like unfiling my case once it was filed and the fees had been paid, that when you unfile a case that you're acting in a way that you don't have authority to act as a judge. You're supposed to let it be, let it go through the process with a motion to dismiss or whatever. So we prevailed that way and made it to the Supreme Court under their Rule 11. And I think it's probably the only Rule 11 ever filed regarding a personal damage claim against members of Congress. And so, and what the Rule 11 means is the court, once they receive the filings, they have to decide that it is of imperative public importance. Those are the words, imperative public importance. And if they decide that, then they file it under Rule 11, which they did for me and allowed me to bypass the normally required appellate court, which in this case was the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals in Denver. Here's an actual copy. I actually have these perfect bound, is the way that the Supreme Court likes to have them. Perfect bound. So I have copies of these available at my website, 7discoveries.com. And then also the summons and complaint, 387 of them. I had about 500 of these made, and this is a copy of Kamala Harris's summons and complaint. And so the summons is the same for all 387 defendants, but the complaint, no, it's different for all 387 defendants because it has to have their name, but the complaint itself is identical. So I thought I'd get some of these. So if anyone wants to go to 7discoveries.com, they can get actual copies of the Supreme Court appeal as well as the federal lawsuit. So to be able to, we had so many hurdles and so many, like you mentioned, the federal court literally unfiling my case. As a matter of fact, the federal court had ordered the U.S. Marshal Service on March 31st, 2023, to start serving my lawsuit. No, it's 2022, start serving my lawsuit. The U.S. Marshal Service ordered by the Federal Court of Utah to start serving the 387 defendants my summons and complaint. And on that date, the docket showed that about 87 had been served by the U.S. Marshal Service, including Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, Adam Schiff, and 84 others. And so the next day, that's when the federal court called it back and unfiled it and said my case was deficient. And so that's when I moved forward as the plaintiff, suing the federal court and then suing the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals and state court. And after battling there, they decided to do what I was suing them to do, and they reversed their decision, allowed it to move forward. So right now it has been denied a hearing at the Supreme Court level. Now, normally, you when you've been denied a hearing, it's it. It's like you just give up, you quit. But the court has the power to bring it back for a conference. It has not been heard, but it has the power. I was only given one conference. You're entitled to at least two, and the Supreme Court can do anything they want. They can not give you a second chance for a conference or whatever. So right now, the last miracle that I've seen happen is the U.S. Solicitor General, who is very important with my case and can encourage the justices and the court to get me another conference, is Trump's top attorney, Dean John Sauer. He's Mr. Trump's top attorney. Now, President Trump has retruth and supported my lawsuit twice on his Truth Social account. So at some point, I think when the time is right and we have the correct justices in place, I'm going to get another conference. I'm going to get my second conference, which I really didn't get, and let this move forward. And I hope at that time that I can work with the Solicitor General and suggest that they don't set a quick date, that we have time to raise awareness. Now, it's not just what the justices will do about this, but it's raising America's education level of the Constitution. And I'm just as excited about that aspect of this as what the justices could do with this. So we have the list of 387 defendants showing that every one of them refused a simple 10-day investigation. And if this is to move forward at the right time, if the Supreme Court decides with the Solicitor General that I should get my second conference that I wrote, that I never did get, then, and if it moves to a hearing and succeeds, this could go back to federal court, and discovery would then happen, and I would have the power with the U.S. attorneys. I would have the power to remove any of the defendants as they agree to help with the investigation, exposing the shenanigans and the errors and the traitorous actions that took place by not allowing a simple 10-day investigation.
Well, okay, now let's okay, again, you're going a little bit too fast and too much.
A lot of information there. People will have to record, play this back and forth a few times.
But hang on. Okay, I want to go back to this issue with the Supreme Court. Now you say there has not been a hearing yet. Okay, you have had one conference. You're entitled to two conferences. Okay. What is it going to take in those conferences to get the matter heard? Why do we even know why they would not have a hearing at the beginning?
No, there's no information that was given about that. But in order to get a hearing, at least 4 of the 9 justices have to decide to move it to a hearing. But let's say there are 4 justices, but there are 5 against it. They're not going to want a hearing, because when it goes to a hearing, then the 5 justices are going to kill it. Okay. So they would not want it to go to a hearing. So I think we need another miracle. Maybe the next miracle is we're going to see the Supreme Court change. Maybe Katanya Brown Jackson, because she was appointed with an auto pen, right? Maybe she would be removed and there would be another appointment. And with the encouragement of the new U.S. Solicitor General, who has jurisdiction over the case, even though he's representing the defendants, his job is not to defend the defendants at all costs. His job is to bring justice to the court, regardless of how it affects his defendants, which is usually the federal government. So there is a time and a place, and meanwhile, it's an educational factor where people need to understand, or it's great for them to see that there's some clauses in the Constitution that have been ignored that can be utilized, and even on a simple personal letter at a town meeting, as I mentioned, with the binding oath requirement. So there's an opportunity here for learning and education, which is super important. If I get another conference, then and it's set out and given me enough time to raise more public awareness, we can see instead of 100,000 people sending letters, we could see into the million plus. And once the court of public opinion makes a decision about this, encouraging exposure and transparency. And that's what this case is about. It's about transparency. And it could go back to the federal court without them being determined that they were all guilty, but it would certainly shed a tremendous amount of light having to do with the 2020 election and how many members of Congress were engaged in that, and what we know now, a fraudulent election.
Okay, excellent. Can you stay with me into the second hour? Tell me yes, because I still got a lot I want to talk to you about. Excellent. Good. All right. If you would like to speak with Loy Brunson, if you want to chime in with questions or comments on this situation, 866-870-KRLA is the number, 866-870-5752. And we're going to take a break at the top of the hour. When we come back, we will continue this discussion. We will talk about how the Constitution does not allow socialism. I definitely want to hear what you have to say about that. Okay. But I still have more on the Supreme Court case I want to pick your brain on. Loy Brunson is my guest. Global Freedom Report is the show. We will be right back after these words.
More about freedom and your phone calls right after this.
AM 870, The Answer. Tell your friends we are Southern California's news and talk station they can really trust.
What comes to mind when you think of moving? Boxes, tape, stress, anxiety, a sore back? Ah! Hi, I'm Henry Vogel of Presto Logistics. Moving doesn't have to be this way. For nearly 2 decades, Presto Logistics has packed and moved thousands of families and businesses across town and across the country. Just imagine no packing, no backache, and no stress. At Presto Logistics, we've got the trucks, movers, and experience to make your move smooth and stress-free. Presto Logistics is licensed and insured with an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Go to prestomoving.com or call 818-349-4000, and I'll personally come out to your home to give you a binding quote for your move. And I'll throw in a 10% discount. And if all you need is storage, we can pick up and store your belongings at our climate-controlled storage facility. It starts at just $100 a month. Take the stress and backache out of moving with Presto Logistics. Go to prestomoving.com or call 818-349-4000. That's prestomoving.com, 818-349-4000.
You work hard your whole life. You scrimp and save, and then you put your money in the hands of a financial wealth advisor hoping for a good return. But the advisor wasn't looking out for you. Sound familiar? Hi, I'm Elliot Rosenberger, an attorney with Stop Your Steal. Anne is a client of ours. Her retirement portfolio was shredded by a wealth advisor.
After I realized my money was gone, I was traumatized. I couldn't believe I was a victim. I heard an ad for Stop Your Steal, and I gave them a call. They got right on it and fought for me.
We went after the advisor, held his feet to the fire, and maximized Anne's recovery. Are you losing money and don't know why? Could it be that your broker sold you unsuitable investments or put their own commission interests ahead of yours? Go to stopyoursteal.com or call 888-358-4547. Investment fraud attorneys Rosenberger, Kawabata, Satnick, and Lau. We hold bad brokers accountable. StopYourSteal.com. StopYourSteal.com.
Rosenberger and Kawabata, 475 Washington Boulevard, Marina Del Rey, California, 90292.
Portions of the following are pre-recorded.
AM 870, The Answer. Find us at am870theanswer.com. Download our apps, stream us 24/7, or watch us at snc.tv.
With SRN News, I'm Mary Rose. A man armed with guns and knives stormed the lobby outside the White House Correspondents' Association dinner attended by President Trump last night, shooting a Secret Service man before being subdued. The president was quickly escorted off the stage and was not injured. Afterwards, he did speak to the media.
In light of this evening's events, I ask that all Americans recommit with their hearts in resolving our difference peacefully. We have to resolve our differences.
At least 2 people have died from a severe tornado-producing storm that hit northern Texas, and many homes have sustained major damage. Wise County Judge J.D. Clark says the storm came through the town of Runaway Bay around 10 p.m. Saturday night, killing 1 person. Emergency responders worked to clear debris. This is SRN News.
What happens when feelings replace morality? If right and wrong are just personal opinions, then who decides why violence, theft, or chaos are wrong? In his new book, If There Is No God, Dennis Prager tackles the biggest questions of good, evil, suffering, and justice, offering clear arguments for anyone searching for moral clarity in a troubled age. If There Is No God by Dennis Prager, available now at pragerstore.com. That's pragerstore.com.
You know, life moves fast. Staying sharp, focused, and clear-headed isn't always easy. That's why the same company that brings you Relief Factor has developed something brand new, Think Factor. Think Factor is made to help you think clearer and perform better daily. It's a powerful blend of nutrients that unlocks mental clarity and precision, nurtures your memory, boosts your attention. With Think Factor, brain power and performance finally meet for lasting daily results. Supercharge your memory, mental sharpness. Your brain is your most valuable asset, powering your creativity, focus, and daily performance. If you're feeling mentally foggy, give it a try. After a couple of weeks of taking Think Factor, it was a game changer for me. Look, the longer you take Think Factor, the better it works for you. If you've ever thought you want to be more clear, more focused, call 800-4-RELIEF. 800, the number 4-RELIEF, or visit relieffactor.com to learn more and order Think Factor. Your first bottle is just $19.95. Think Factor. Think clearer, perform better daily. Call 800-4RELIEF or visit relieffactor.com for Think Factor.
Are you ready to sell your home in just 30 days? I've been talking to more and more homeowners lately who tell me the same thing. They love their home. They're just ready to leave California. I'm Lucas Smith with Sell My Home Real Estate. And the hardest part of relocating isn't deciding which red state to move to. It's figuring out how to sell your house fast enough to actually make the move. That's exactly why at Sell My Home Real Estate, we offer our 30-day written guarantee. Our proven marketing systems attract hundreds of motivated buyers, which allows us to confidently say, we'll sell your home in 30 days or we'll sell it for free. Because when you're ready to move on, you don't want delays, you don't want uncertainty, you want a plan. Call or text me directly, Lucas Smith, 714-278-3688. That's 714-278-3688. Or visit sellmyhomerealestate.com. That's sellmyhomerealestate.com.
Seller and Sell My Home Real Estate must agree to price and possession. DRE number 0190457. DRE number 0129031.
AM 870, The Answer is everywhere on the air in SoCal at AM 870 on your AM 870 smartphone app.
The advantage of modern technology.
And now on Amazon and Google Home speakers. Just ask for AM 870, The Answer.
Are you listening?
And welcome back to hour number 2 of the Global Freedom Report. If you'd like to be part of the show, the toll-free number is 866-870-KRLA, 866-870-5752. Question for today: what do you believe is more important, preserving freedom or combating terrorism? If you have to choose between the two, where would your choice be? 866-870-KRLA. My guest is Loy Brunson. The topic: oaths of office as required by the Constitution. And, you know, when I first heard about this, Loy, I thought that the issue was whether or not the oaths were valid, and that if they were found to be invalid, that we would find maybe 85-90% of Congress simply removed from office. Now, in listening to you, it sounds like that is not the case. My question for you: in the ideal situation where you do get the hearing before the Supreme Court and some kind of a ruling is issued, what is it you are seeking them to rule on, and what are the consequences if they rule in your favor?
Well, I'd like it to be remanded back to federal court so we can move forward with discovery, which means all 387 defendants would have to answer questions. They would have to produce documents. They would have to produce emails, text messages, any correspondence they've had with other members of Congress or anyone else having to do with why they chose to allow a security breach to happen. And then from then, the information that would be gathered with discovery, if there's criminal information involved with that, then we could refer to the Department of Justice for criminal action. But that would be my main goal. And I talked with a former member of Congress who thought that that would be the best solution too, and he thought that that's what was going to happen, and that there would probably be a congressional committee put together to help with the discovery. So it's all about holding our representatives accountable. They feel like it's just a complete free-for-all, that they can do anything they want as a mob. And as we push back and expose some of these things, then it will hold their feet to the fire. And how many politicians would run for office if they knew that the oath was as binding as maybe a military oath? Well, if you disobey the military oath, you can be subject to criminal prosecution. And so how many politicians would not even think twice about running? They would not want to run knowing that they would be accountable for their oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. For one, they would have to read the document, and that would that would discourage probably a good majority of them right there. And so
Well,
if they take an oath, yeah.
again, what I want to get clear here is what are the consequences to the members? Okay, in other words, what can be done to them? What can be done that hurts them, okay, as a result of this case?
Well, I think the most severe thing is the criminal action that could be brought against them for participating in a huge security breach and violating their oath. But on a civil level, the judge could determine a number of things where they could be fined. They could even possibly be barred from holding public office again. But if there are treasonous kind of evidences presented and going to the Department of Justice, the Congress itself has determined the penalty for treason, and there's low treason and high treason, and they've actually been the ones to decide what the penalties are. And low treason is being barred from holding public office and a severe fine, and the high treason is capital punishment. So
well, now you've mentioned a few times security breach. Can you expound on that? What is the security breach?
Well, Ted Cruz and 140 some odd other members of Congress proved with a ton of documents that our 2020 election had been breached, that it had been compromised, that we had been attacked. They had evidence of fraud that was huge. And so for members of Congress to not allow that to be investigated, that's like bringing criminal evidence to a prosecutor and he refuses to investigate. Well, when you refuse to investigate, you could be held accountable. You could be investigated as an accomplice or a party that might be a participant in the fraud, in the deception, in the attack on this country. So there are several different levels of liability that is created when these people refuse to do that. And I know some of the members of Congress are people thinking, "Oh, our job is just to let those electoral envelopes be opened and the votes be counted." And it's like, no, when there are members of Congress that prove that we've been attacked, you don't say, "Oh, I don't have to do anything. So what if we've been attacked? That's not my job to protect us from being attacked." It's like, the heck it isn't, right? We've been attacked and here's proof. You better get to the bottom of it.
What about the idea of intent? You've mentioned possible criminal prosecution. Ordinarily, in criminal prosecution, one of the elements to prove is intent. Now, Congress consider, well, I had no intention to defraud the American people here. How do you deal with that?
Well, that's where the discovery process comes in. You would have emails, you would have text messages, you would have phone conversations, you would have witnesses, and you would have absolute proof if there's been a guilty parties. So they wouldn't be able to deny it because you would have the proof. And then with the proof, the referrals could then be sent to the Department of Justice for more criminal investigation. So, the American needs to know what the heck happened. Why did they refuse a simple 10-day investigation?
How many congressmen and senators are believed to be potentially affected by this case?
Well, there are 387 defendants, and most of them are still in office today. So that's a lot of defendants. If you want to see the list, you can go to supremecourt.gov and look for 22-1028, or you can go to 7discoveries.com, and I'll send you a printed copy that shows all the defendants of the Supreme Court appeal. It shows all the defendants right here. You can see that. And then also I have a copy of Kamala Harris's summons and complaint, and it shows all the defendants as well. You can see that. Mm-hmm. And here you can see at the front what it is. It's here, I'll just read this. It's to Vice President Kamala Harris with her address. A lawsuit has been filed against you. And this is from Kimberly A. Free, PhD, who is the clerk of the court of the Federal Court of Utah, where it says a lawsuit has been filed against you within 21 days after service of the summons on you, not counting the day you received it, you must serve on the plaintiff an answer to the attached fourth amended complaint on a motion under Rule 12 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. The answer or motion must be served on the plaintiff, me, and pro se, me, whose name and address is Loy Brunson. It says, if you fail to do so, judgment by default will be entered against you for the relief demanded in the complaint. You also must file your answer or motion with this court. So if the Supreme Court of the United States has a hearing and remands it back to federal court, then you've got 387 defendants that better lawyer up pretty quickly, because each one of those and every single one of those would then be required to answer the complaint just as outlined in the paragraph that I just read, and they would have 21 days after the decision from the Supreme Court to respond.
How does politics play into this? I hate the fact that I even need to ask this question, okay? Because we're talking about constitutional law. Well, we talk about the Constitution, the supreme law of the land, and all that. But if the court, and I talk about the Supreme Court, rules that this matter shall continue, it could drastically affect the number of members of Congress. Are the political ramifications of such a drastic event a mitigating factor with respect to the ability to obtain a legitimate and honest ruling on the issue?
Well, it would sure raise a heck of a lot of interest and public awareness, but there are Republicans as well as Democrats, so it's really a bipartisan action. And then as the plaintiff, I would have the power to negotiate any of them or all of them out of being defendants. I could negotiate with them, and it would be on the basis really of them participating in an investigation. And that's what really happens. It's like I'd like to focus on the exposure that it would create rather than the reliefs asked in the complaint. The judge can decide not to give any relief, or the judge could decide to give some or all of the relief. So it would really cause a lot of thinking, and it would be so exciting to me because it would raise awareness of the binding oath requirement, of the absolute immunity that they've given themselves, and the fact that they refused, Republicans and Democrats refused a simple 10-day investigation that would have completely not set anything back. But they were all afraid, or who knows why they chose to make the decision they did not to allow an investigation to go forward. But the exposure would be phenomenal. And I'm thinking, because there are left, Democrats and Republicans in the complaint, it's sort of in a way, it's like the parties coming together, So,
well, yeah, unfortunately, I can't help but discount the effect that politics has on these types of situations. Though, for me, I want to see this go. I want to see this go, as far as it can possibly go. Frankly, I'd like to see the bums just thrown out of office. That's what I'd really like to see.
Well, it's exposure. It's exposure. This could be bigger than the Epstein files. The discovery process could expose conspiracy, and that's one of the things I'm complaining about. Causes of action is civil conspiracy. Now, because there's a civil conspiracy cause of action in the complaint, attorneys are not supposed to represent any of the defendants, multiple defendants, if they've had any business dealings. So if they've had business dealings with one or two of the other defendants, then they would have to say, no, we can't handle the case. So this would create a huge problem for the lawyering up, where they would have to find a law firm that had not had any business dealings that would prejudice the case, any business dealings with any of the other 386 defendants. Because what can happen is the defendants could become hostile defendants, which means they could bring lawsuits against other defendants. And if an attorney represents more than one, he creates liability for himself, and he also creates liability for his client. So
Wow.
it would be a huge public awareness thing. It'd be amazing to see America wake up to the binding oath requirement. It's really about the Constitution coming to life in people's everyday life and seeing how it can be used to hold our representatives' feet to the fire. And back to what Thomas Jefferson said, he said that's the only corrective for constitutional abuse is education. And how many people in America would get excited about knowing that there are clauses in the Constitution that have been ignored that they can use and just hold up in front of their representatives to hold their feet to the fire in a more effective way than ever before.
And hang on, we got another break coming. When we come back, we're going to talk about socialism, judicial activism, okay, and more with Loy Brunson. We'll be right back. This is the Global Freedom Report.
Don't go away. There's a lot more of the Global Freedom Report when we come back.
In a world where forgotten history hides ancient forces of control, Atlas uncovers a forbidden codex and is thrust into an epic battle for humanity's freedom. The Book of Atlas, a groundbreaking feature film, the first fully AI and crypto-driven cinematic experience, premieres online April 19th. Get your tickets now at thebookofatlas.com and save 40% with promo code Brent. That's Brent for 40% off at thebookofatlas.com.
This is Susan Lindauer, the former U.S. intelligence asset who warned about 9/11. When truth becomes treason, you want to be listening to the Global Freedom Report with Brent Johnson.
Americans have become conditioned to view the state as our protector and the solution to every problem. Liberty has meaning only if we still believe in it when terrible things happen and a false government security blanket beckons.
They're watching my house and they're tapping my telephone. I don't trust nobody, but I'm much too scared to be on my own. And the income tax collector has got his beady eyes on me.
And welcome back to the Global Freedom Report. I'm your host, Brent Johnson. My guest is Loy Brunson. Topic, oaths of office, 866-870-KRLA, 866-870-5752. Now, okay, a couple of things I want to ask you about. First and foremost, you said at the beginning that the Constitution prohibits socialism and Marxism. Now, I think I'm pretty well read when it comes to the Declaration of the Constitution, but I have to say, when you said that, I'm quite intrigued, I'm a bit surprised, and I want to know where you found that and explain it to all of us, please.
Yeah, sure. Okay, first of all, it's the title on my book. It's How and Why Promoting Socialism is Unconstitutional. So, what I've learned that I felt like that I hadn't heard before is that several things leading up to that. One is that the first 10 amendments were never defined by the first Congress as the Bill of Rights. I believe that that title kind of cloaks its power and was maybe used in as kind of a deceptive tool to the powers within the first 10 amendments, because they were truly defined by the first Congress, and this is in my book, as further declaratory restrictive clauses to the 7 articles, to the Constitution. So, and as you know, Rhode Island and others were skeptical, but Rhode Island wouldn't sign on to the document, to the Constitution, until those first 10 further declaratory and restrictive clauses were put in place and signed on to. So if we take that seriously, that the first 10 amendments have that power, we look at the last line of the 5th Amendment. Nor shall your private property, which I say includes your money, be taken for public use without just compensation. Well, that implicates some other clauses within the Constitution. And that 5th Amendment, they have the power to restrict clauses within the 7 articles. So if you think about it, that is the definition of socialism, and it also prohibits it. You can't have your private property, your money, taken from you for public use without just compensation. So that's very clear there. There's also an amendment, not one of the 10, that involuntary servitude is not allowed. And if taking your money and redistributed, if that isn't involuntary servitude, what is? But my favorite clause that's highlighted in this book is the last line of the fifth. And that actually begs some other questions that takes the whole discussion into a deeper tax related bit of information and question.
Well, let me play a little bit of devil's advocate here.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
In that, okay, the clause says without just compensation. Now,
right.
How do you determine what is just compensation?
Well, it's certainly not public use, is it? And that's the argument.
I mean, we've
that's
got
the argument.
we've got these eminent domain things up there, that have been used and ever since the first ruling on that.
Well,
they've been used.
And that's another battle. And that's another battle. But Cleon Skousen has a real thick book. It's called The Making of America, and he focuses on every clause in the Constitution. And so so his focus and the information that he gave regarding this last line of the Fifth Amendment was that he referenced actually a Supreme Court case where the last line of the Fifth was used in a Supreme Court case successfully to push back against mandatory minimum wage. And so it had, but the question of how do you explain what that would be? Well, that would be that's another whole, that's like the solution. Here's the problem. Here are the clauses. So the fact, I think another way to be devil's advocate on this is like, okay, well, having your money taken from you for public use without just compensation, that's the definition of taxation. So you could say, hey, Loy, are you saying that that the last line of the Fifth Amendment, if we take it literally, that nullifies all the tax clauses in the 7 articles? Is that what you're saying? I'm saying, well, we've got a little problem here, don't we? Did the founders not know what they were doing, or did the brilliant ones in this battle? And that's what it really was. The signers of the Constitution were not in total agreement on everything. It was a battle, and so the good guys won. And I think the guys that weren't so good with the battle lost out. But the way that they are winning now, the bad guys, is with our ignorance. So let's take this a little step further. If the last line of the Fifth Amendment is to be taken literally, that means you can't have your money taken from you for public use unless you're giving something back. Well, the government can't give you anything back. If it takes, what can they give you back, right? So in other words, the tax clauses, if you want to take this literally, it's like, hey guys, you signed on to the Constitution and you gave the Congress enumerated powers to tax us, but then you've got this Fifth Amendment that defines taxation and prohibits it. So what's the solution here? How are we going to fund government without taxation? And that takes us into a Federal Reserve System question. And I had a conversation in 2015 about this, because I've been doing this for a while, with Stephen Moore, Chief Economics Advisor for President Trump in his first term. And it's like, so how would we fund government if there was no taxation whatsoever? And it's like, well, the Federal Reserve System is a private corporation. A lot of people don't know that. They think it's an agency of the government. They think it's part of the Treasury. It is not. It's a private corporation. And they are supposed to, every trillion they create is supposed to be handed over to the Treasury without being taxed for it. Every trillion they create out of thin air is supposed to be profit for the U.S. Treasury. And the Federal Reserve System's charter only gives them their operating expenses. They're only allowed to keep enough money to cover their operating expenses, and everything over that, which would be the trillions, belongs as profit to the U.S. Treasury. Well, as we know from congressional hearings, the Federal Reserve System people have been creating trillions of dollars that they haven't loaned to our government. And I remember a congressional hearing where one of the members of Congress was asking where $9 trillion went. And the answer, I think it was Bernanke, said, don't worry about it. It's not part of the tax bill. It's not part of the tax. In other words, we're not going to bill you for that, but we get to spend it. And he says, well, who got the money? And he says, I'm sorry, we can't reveal the identities of the recipients of the $9 trillion. Now, that's a short few month period of transactions. $9 trillion? That's like, Good grief, that should have been front page news. We've got a huge security gap break there, don't we? If they can create trillions of dollars. So the conversation I had with Stephen Moore was, if we could enforce, in theory, enforce the nonprofit status of the Federal Reserve System, they would have to return more trillions in profit that really belong to the Treasury than what the federal debt is and the federal liability. So the potential of this, when this is exposed properly, is the wealth that the Federal Reserve System shareholders have accumulated through the creation of money out of thin air really needs to be returned to the taxpayer, and that could be a pretty magnificent amount of wealth, not just cash, not just money. We're talking huge amounts of wealth, and it would it would have huge ramifications on our tax system. It would be like I did a little preview for a television show, a little videotaping, and I was able to ask John Stossel and Steve Forbes and Dinesh D'Souza what they would do if they were president. And I says, try to make it quick, like a 1 or 2 sentences. And Steve Forbes says, if I were president, I would get rid of the Federal Reserve, get rid of the IRS, and give America her freedom again. And that's really the core of the whole problem. The Bible says the root of all evil is the money. I think they took out a word. I think it was supposed to read, the root of all evil is the money changers. On the modern day money changers.
One more break, one more segment and such. We're going to tackle judicial activism. I have a comment to make to you about lion tamers and the Constitution. We'll be right back with Loy Brunson and more of the Global Freedom Report.
We'll be back in a moment. You're listening to the Global Freedom Report.
A common law pure trust organization is the most powerful asset protection device available. Pure trusts have been around in the USA since 1790, when patriot Patrick Henry created the first one. Pure trusts establish ironclad protection for real property, vehicles, businesses, and just about anything else. A pure trust creates a wall of privacy over its assets, reduces personal liability, and protects property from attachment. Freedom Bound International has been creating pure trusts for over 35 years, and none of their trusts have ever been successfully attacked. Call today at 888-385-FREE. That number again is 888-385-3733. Or visit their website at freedomradio.us for information and applications for their pure trusts. Freedom Bound International, dedicated to the preservation of personal freedom, privacy rights, and the principles enshrined in the Declaration of Independence.
The answer. Breaking news.
President Trump says it's always shocking when there's an attempt on his life, like what happened Saturday night at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Speaking from the White House.
I think you're going to find everything about him. No reason to talk about it now, but tomorrow at this time, long before this time, you're going to know a lot of things about him. They seem to think he was a lone wolf.
Secret Service and officers apprehended the man at the Hilton, whom he called a thug, who had multiple weapons. Larry Marino on The Answer with breaking news and talk you can trust.
I'm talking with investment fraud attorney Adam Satnick. We've all lost money in the market, but could losing a lot of money signal fraud?
Yes, Dave. People are victims of financial misconduct all the time, but they don't realize it. It's often a matter of simply looking at brokerage account statements and what investments a broker has put their money into. We find that sometimes the broker has invested without their knowledge or permission. People have lost a bunch of their money and had no idea why. We hold their brokers accountable. We hold their feet to the fire.
If you're losing money and don't know why, could it be that your broker sold you unsuitable investments or put their own commission interests ahead of yours? Go to stopyoursteal.com. Stopyoursteal.com. Call 888-358-4547. 888-358-4547.
Investment fraud attorneys Rosenberger, Kawabata, Satnick, and Lau. We hold bad brokers accountable.
Stopyoursteal.com. Rosenberger and Kawabata, 475 Washington Boulevard, Marina Del Rey, California, 90292.
Jennifer here, and our friend Dr. Zade wants you to know the truth. Those ads offering free dental implants or offering cash if you get dental implants are just bait and switch tactics designed to trick you. The truth is, no school, hospital, or institution will give you free dental implants, and no grants, trials, benefits, or government programs will either. And honestly, those really inexpensive implant offers sound questionable at best. What you need is an implant that fits right, that works for you every single day for a long, long time, with quality materials put in in by an implant specialist like Dr. Today. His patented Implanova and Fridge systems offer straightforward, all-inclusive, honest solutions that cost less. That means quality materials done by an implant expert for less money. Don't be fooled. Call Doctors Today for a free consultation. 310-273-2020. 310-273-2020. That's 310-273-2020.
We don't make the news that happens. We just bring it to you first with the facts, then the opinions. AM 870, The Answer. AM 870, The Answer is the place for everyone's opinion. Read the latest headlines on our website, am870theanswer.com.
This is Lord Christopher Monckton, working to bring you the truth about climate change. And this is the Global Freedom Report.
Do you know what happens in the module? They burn living people. The category ones, they're still alive, but they're being burnt. This place is being built around institutional murder.
I'm not the one who makes the rules. Category ones are dead. That's the law. Under the emergency rulings, for the sake of public health, dead bodies can be incinerated en masse.
Well, I'm glad you've got the law on your side. But are you actually there? In the module, are you actually throwing the switch? No, you're here, you're nice and safe, hidden behind your paperwork. You haven't got the nerve to actually watch them burn. Because then you'd have to face the truth, wouldn't you? That this isn't a hospital, this is a concentration camp.
And you are one of the staff! The entire healthcare system is about to collapse. What else am I supposed to do?
You say no, that's what you do. For the love of God, you say no.
And welcome back to the Global Freedom Report. I'm your host, Brent Johnson. My guest is Loy Brunson. And Loy, let me tell you how I see the Constitution. The Constitution is very much like a whip and a chair. If you take a whip and a chair and you put it in a cage with a beast, a lion, what happens? Nothing happens. Nothing happens because there is a component element that is missing. And what's missing is the lion tamer. The lion tamer picks up the whip and chair and wields it to tame the beast. The beast is government. The lion tamers are we the people. We have been sadly remiss in our duty to wield the whip and chair of the Constitution to keep the beast in place, in its proper place. That is how I see the Constitution. How do we get the people, not the government, because the fox will never guard the henhouse effectively. How do we get we the people to pick up the whip and chair of the Constitution and wield it to keep the government in its proper place?
I think first of all, go to 7discoveries.com and get this book, because it gives you the information that would take years to really study and connect the dots with. And this book is different because all the other Constitution books go into schools and government agencies, which does not allow them to put any commentary or highlight any of the clauses. So this is different in that respect. And I'm just thinking, just knowing that there's a binding oath requirement in the Constitution, and that there's also other clauses. There's a clause in there that demands strict interpretation of the Constitution. It's brilliant. It could be used in contracts. And I remember when I was first printing a few of my first books, I was stood in front of a friend's table at an event, and I would stop people and I would say, I discovered something in the Constitution that I don't believe has ever been published before or publicized before. I remember this one gentleman pulled out his pocket Constitution, and it was tattered, and I could tell it was marked up, and he kind of shook it at me, and he says, you can tell me something that I don't already know from this Constitution? I says, well, I think I can. He says, well, if you can, I'll make a contribution and I'll take one of your books. I says, well, the first 10 amendments, as I explained earlier, are not just the Bill of Rights. They are further declaratory and restrictive clauses. And one of those special amendments is the Ninth Amendment that demands strict interpretation, that the only correct interpretation of the Constitution is an interpretation that protects our God-given unalienable rights. Otherwise, they're not unalienable. And I said, it's the Ninth Amendment. And I said, when I discovered this, I felt like it was the voice of God, like the 11th commandment. And it goes like this: the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. In other words, no interpretation of the Constitution by any officer, any level, is legal or lawful or constitutional if that interpretation violates the unalienable rights of we the people. And I said, to me, I felt like that was the voice of God. Well, he looked at me, pulled out his wallet, handed me a 20, took a book, and walked away. And I thought, I have a message here. I have a message here that I think people are going to resonate with. It's not complex. It's not complicated. There's Q&A in the back of the book that is an education in itself. I've attended constitutional classes, and it goes into the incredible history of the Constitution, but doesn't get into these really powerful clauses. And right now, it seems like even our constitutional scholars will tell you that taxation is constitutional. Well, that's having your private property taken from you for public use without just compensation. So we got a problem there. And there's the question, did the signers of the Constitution...
Only if the taxation is mandatory. And they've been very, very clever to make sure that the taxation is not mandatory, but they don't tell you how.
Income tax, right?
How you have volunteered into it. All right, let's tackle judicial activism now. We run into this all the time. I mean, President Trump has probably made a record in terms of how many bogus rulings from judges have been used to obstruct his efforts. Judges do it all the time. Okay, now judges have oaths of office also. Okay, what can we do to stop the judicial activism? Judges are going out, and even the Supreme Court has come out and said things that you can't do this, and they still go out and do it. How do we stop judges from taking control over what was never theirs to control?
Well, it really goes back to we the people, and the people, as they become aware of the Constitution and the binding oath requirements in it, then something magical happens. Like free enterprise, there's an invisible arm that happens. And so the Supreme Court justices actually take two oaths. They have a judicial oath, which includes supporting and defending the Constitution of the United States. And then they have another oath that is strictly the Constitution. So I think the most important thing right now to do is get our president to enforce the oaths taken by the directors, which are executive appointments of the Federal Communications Commission. I believe the most dangerous thing in this country right now is the Federal Communication Commission not enforcing their oath to the Constitution and making sure that that these mainstream media outlets only are allowed to speak the truth. And when they report false information and especially false political information, they need to be held accountable. And our Federal Communication Commission directors have failed in their job. So I would say, President Trump, please do something. Discipline the Federal Communication Commission directors, get rid of them and replace them with those who will enforce the laws of the land, the Constitution of the United States. And no media outlet should be able to be a psyops for an enemy, domestic or foreign. And that's what they've become. They've been psychological warfare. Every government has a psyops division for their military, and the mainstream media has become a psyops for our enemies. And it needs to be treated as such. So I think that'd be the number one step. And then the justices will actually, they would be affected by America waking up to the rule of law.
Well, and you may want to research it. There's also the Smith-Mundt Act of, I think it was 1943 or something, which in effect made it lawful for the government to propagandize the American people. It used to be that they had to tell the truth. After the Smith-Mundt Act, no, they don't have to tell the truth anymore. They can lie, okay? And they do it, and they do it very, very effectively. Sure. All right, 7discoveries.com. Tell me about 7discoveries.com. First off, where did the name come from?
Well, I like the number 7, and I had these discoveries that I felt were personal and important to me. So I thought I'll just title it 7 Discoveries. So on my book here, I have it. Uh, I just call it 7 powerful constitutional discoveries, and I invite other people or people to go in and find their own discoveries and these discoveries as well. So my discoveries include some of the things that I was talking about with you, and the Q&A gets into some of it too. And here's another kind of interesting one. I don't think this has ever been used in a IRS court, and that is there's an amendment in the Constitution that states you cannot be deprived your right to vote for failure to pay any tax whatsoever. Okay, so if someone has been charged with a felony, it deprives them of their right to vote. If they've been charged with a felony tax problem, that could maybe warrant looking at the Constitution. I think it's the 24th Amendment, where you cannot be deprived your right to vote. So I think an attorney would say, okay, my defendant failed to pay taxes, failed to file or whatever, failed to pay taxes. You can't convict him of a felony because that would deprive him of his right to vote. Here's Amendment 24 that states that. So you better not do that. But as we talked about, the Fifth Amendment, in my mind, really nullifies all the tax clauses.
How about 7discoveries.com? Can people get in touch with you? Like, if they want to get in touch with you, is this a way for them to get in touch? Also, if people would like to donate, to contribute to the work that you are doing, is this an effective way?
Sure. If they want to go to 7discoveries.com, there's also a phone number there that they can leave a message on or text message. But the number 7, Discoveries with an S, and they can go to that website. And there are a lot of different options on the book. You know, you can get the coffee table size, you can get the smaller pocket size that has a gold foil on it, or you can even get the smaller one with my picture. I think there's an offer if you give a gift of $38, you can get 38 of these with priority mail shipping. And this is not a pamphlet. This is a perfect bound little book. So there was a problem with the printing where on some of them, the printing is a little bit to the left. So we were able to get the cost down. So 38 of those for $38 with free priority mail shipping is people are taking advantage of that. And I can do that until I'm out of the 50,000. But 7, the number 7, discoveries.com. And then there's a phone number there that they can reach me at as well.
Loy, it has been such a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show. You know, we could keep going on and on and on and on. I would love to have you back, okay, at some point if you're open to it.
Sure.
It's absolutely tremendous what you're doing. Our prayers are with you. My prayers are with you, because I want to see them throw the bums out. That's it. You know,
okay.
I'm done with it. You know,
Great.
So anything you can do to make that happen. Thank you so much. My guest has been Loy Brunson, and we have more coming up on the Global Freedom Report. So stay tuned. We will be back. Loy, God bless you and the work you are doing, and my best wishes to your family, please.
Thank you, Brent. This has been a real pleasure. Thank you.
God bless. We'll be right back after these words.
Stay with us. More truth and freedom right around the corner.
What if you could live free from government regulation? What if you could learn how to lawfully opt out of taxes, eliminate personal liability, and travel in your vehicle without Big Brother watching over you? The American Sovereign, How to Live Free from Government Regulation, reveals the truth about the American legal system, the U.S. Constitution, and shows how to protect your God-given rights. The American Sovereign provides information critical to all people who value liberty. This 250-page full-size paperback will change the way you live and teach you how to reclaim control over your life. The American Sovereign, How to Live Free from Government Regulation, is available through Freedom Bound International. Call them toll-free at 888-385-3733. That's 888-385-FREE. Or visit their website at freedomradio.us. The American Sovereign, How to Live Free from Government Regulation is the #1 book on sovereignty in the world. Get your copy today.
This is Greg Evenson, former Kansas State Trooper, working to restore truth and freedom to the Republic. And this is the Global Freedom Report.
I just want to make sure that everyone here is very clear. No illusions about what we're doing here today. All of us want everyone swore the same oath, to defend our country's freedom against all enemies, foreign and domestic. We all believed in this. We believed it enough to risk our lives. Ask yourselves, are you still willing to take that risk? We've been informed that Homeland Security is planning a raid for this afternoon. They're going to be taking entire families to hold and interrogate, searching for people like us. Now, gentlemen, I don't want to state the obvious. We cannot allow this to happen. What starts today won't end quickly, and some of us will not be around to see the end.
Freedom Fever.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Freedom Fever. Make it viral.
And welcome back to the Global Freedom Report. I'm your host, Brent Johnson. You got a little bit of time left if you want to be part of the show. 866-870-KRLA, 866-870-5752. What do you believe is more important, preserving freedom or combating terrorism? I'm asking you to make a choice, preserving freedom or combating terrorism. What do you believe is more important? 866-870-KRLA, 866-870-5752. Also, if you have an issue you feel strongly about, something that you really want to rant or rave about, this show is an opportunity for you to get a chance to do exactly that. Listeners will be given the chance to call into the show and share their anger, outrage, and or frustration or their pleasure concerning whatever the issue is that is either bothering them or inspiring them. If you're interested in doing a rant and rave on the air, heard by hundreds of thousands of people, you can do so simply by calling us off the air at 888-385-3733. That number again, 888-385-FREE. Now it's time for Propaganda 101. Propaganda is the manipulation of the truth to serve a pre-established political or economic agenda. Thomas Paine, my favorite founding father, wrote that government is a necessary evil. Most people read that as meaning government is necessary. I read that as meaning government is fundamentally evil. Today, I want to talk to you about the definition game. One of the most effective propaganda tools is the redefining of ordinary words in order to influence you to succumb to whatever the government wants you to do. For example, the Internal Revenue Service will tell you that the income tax is levied on activities, and I quote, effectively connected with the conduct of a trade or business in the United States. Now, you think you know what that means. But do you have any idea what the term trade or business means? In Title 26 of the U.S. Code, Section 7701A, it defines the term trade or business, and I quote, includes the performance of the functions of a public office. Furthermore, the word includes is exclusive in law. That means that whatever is included is all that is included. If I say color includes blue and red, then color excludes all other colors. Unless I say color includes without limitation blue or red, then the word color includes other colors. These are only a few examples of words that have been redefined by the government. There are countless examples of ordinary words that have been redefined by government in order to get you to voluntarily agree to waive your God-given rights. The redefinition of words is one of the most effective ways in which the government gets you to volunteer into its jurisdiction and give it control over you. If you want to learn more about how your rights have been undermined by government propaganda, get a copy of my book, The American Sovereign: How to Live Free from Government Regulation. Check out my website at www.freedomradio.us. Everything you find there is designed to help you seek the truth rather than believe the lies that propaganda uses to influence you. And that, my friends, is this week's look at Propaganda 101. I also want to tell you about my new book, my brand new book called The Hard Truth. The premise of the book is that there is your truth based on your experiences, your knowledge, your character, and there is my truth based on my experiences, my knowledge, and my character. Our truths are based on our own life experiences. But what if there is a truth that surpasses my truth and your truth? Call it universal truth. Call it God's truth. It is a truth with a capital T, a truth that will genuinely set you free, a truth that will resolve all conflicts between my truth and your truth. It is His truth, the capital T truth, the hard truth. I want to invite you to get a copy of it. You can get either the soft cover version, which is $22, or the hardcover version, which is $35. In either case, at $13 shipping and handling. And if you do get a copy of the hard copy of The Hard Truth, I will sign it, author's signature, and I will put a personal message to you in the book. More information, go to freedomradio.us or call us off the air at 888-385-3733. What are you willing to do to protect and preserve your liberty? And what are you not willing to do to protect and preserve that same liberty? And at the end of the day, would you be proud to tell your friends, your family, your loved ones, your children, what you did today? Did you tell the truth? Did you keep your word? Did you honor your agreements? And if not, then please correct any trespass on your brother or sister. And everyone is your brother or sister. And do it now. Don't wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow is too late. On next week's show, Jordan Page has produced the first totally artificial intelligence film. He is a musician and vocalist, dedicating his efforts to promoting truth, justice, and liberty. He will join us for a new episode of Freedom Follies. Also, we will bring you another invaluable edition of Lessons in Liberty, where you learn really useful things they never taught you in public school. And we will embark on our weekly journey into the dirty world of mind control and behavioral manipulation on Propaganda 101. That's all coming up on next week's edition of the Global Freedom Report. Don't miss it. Be sure to visit the Freedom Bound International website at www.freedomradio.us to learn practical ways to live free from government regulation, or call us at 888-385-3733. That number again, 888-385-FREE. We can show you how to protect your liberty, property, and privacy from government intrusion. So call us today, 888-385-FREE. Tune in next week for another edition of the Global Freedom Report. I'm Brent Johnson, reminding you that freedom is your birthright. It is a gift from God. Treat it accordingly. God bless you all.
Right to life and liberty. Open your eyes and you will see that America is still land of the free. Land of the free. Right to life and liberty. Open your eyes and you will see that America is still the land of the free.
This program was sponsored by